Howdy ho, my friends. Tried to get music playing, but something ain't working right. So I guess we say, oh well. Starting off today a little differently. I was going to do it with the music and all that happy hoo-ha that, nope, technical difficulties. So instead, let me ask you a question. When it comes to safety and training, are you really kidding me? There have been a couple of stories recently in the news, and I'm going to dive right in today because, I mean, it's just blowing my mind how crazy the world is becoming. The world of news, anyway. The trucking industry, in and of itself, you have to maintain up here. You've got to think through everything you do. And people clearly are not. Whether it's their actions on the road or sitting in stuffy offices with shirts and ties making decisions. We owe it to ourselves to think this stuff through. Welcome to the show. As badly as it started, it's called Frontlines. Here we talk about trucking news that affects you, give you an opportunity to look, examine each story, talk about the issues that matter, and put them to real life media right here. We challenge mainstream because they don't challenge themselves. Furthermore, they lie to you. They don't tell you the truth. They sugarcoat everything. I don't. 13-year veteran of the trucking industry, having all the experience I have, I feel it's an abundant necessity to allow you to see the media's BS for what it is. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about a story today. And we're going to talk about a number of stories, but all of them highlight a very important issue. What companies are training you for and what they're allowing, what government agencies are allowing, has got to change. No, we don't need more regulations, but we do need more sensibility. So if you like this kind of news coverage and this kind of platform, take a minute, go down below, hit the like button, send YouTube the message you want to see more. Oh, and by the way, if it comes to more, Frontlines is Saturday and Wednesday. Saturday at 11, Wednesday at 7. I'm beginning to start a push to dedicate myself to more frequent lives. So I want you to look for Truckin City Journal. Yeah, you know the videos I'm famous for? Okay. Well, those are also coming in the form of live shows as well. No times are mentioned, but I'm coming through with more stories because I'm noticing more stuff like this, and it's rotting me in my core. I can't stay silent. So when I see a news story that bothers me and I want to make sure you guys know about it, I'm coming up on Journal. I'm coming up here on Frontlines. We are going to talk about it, and we are going to ask you what you think the solutions are. So let's get to it. Today's story is about leaders and mega carriers. What companies are training us for? Think about it this way. Let's get something straight. In a world where training is supposed to be uniform, dictated by the FMCSA and other provinces, why are companies still looking for shortcuts? These aren't minor things. These are glaring gaps in our system that put everybody on the road in danger. So I'm going to open my remarks today by simply saying this. To the leaders and to the mega carriers, I ask you this. How safe do you want this industry to be? It's your responsibility to ensure that every driver you put behind the wheel is more than just adequately trained. They need to be prepared for anything and everything. The standards the trainers have must be tightened. We can't afford trainers who just check the boxes off and just go through the motions. We need professionals dedicated to excellence and safety. These people need to stay the course. I mean, let's be honest here. The mainstream media, they don't get it. They gloss over these issues and they don't report them accurately. They'll report the facts, but they don't cover it the way it needs to be. Companies are training drivers to do this fashion. And what's more, FMCSA is letting them get away with it. They barely meet the requirements. They cut these corners. We need better. And so do you. And when I say so do you, I'm not just talking to the drivers in the audience. I'm talking about the general public, because now people are dying. So we need an overhaul from top to bottom. We need to rethink this. Our industry image is suffering, guys. It's suffering because of poor decisions. Whether it's the ones behind the wheel or it's the companies letting the inexperienced drivers run amok with no supervision. Leaders are allowing needless exemptions for so-called special circumstances. Yeah, we're going to cover that. Feeding into this false narrative of a driver shortage. That's what's justifying this. It's a smokescreen and you know it. So to the bigwigs running these mega carriers and to the leaders making these decisions, I say wake up. We can't have an industry where shortcuts and exemptions are the norm. It just won't work. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, guys. It's about lives. It's real human lives out here. So, guys, I thank you for joining me on the show. I thank you for listening to my remarks. I think it's very abundantly important that we start thinking through what it is we do. Because you know what? It only gets worse from here. We are the show talking about the issues. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my take. We're going to get on the stories. I'm going to show you exactly what it is I mean by what I just said. There is some compelling evidence that we have an issue in the industry and it needs to be addressed. So let's first address some usual guests we have with us today. I think they'll be abundantly excited, just the same as I, to sit here and talk about what needs to happen. But first,
shall we begin?
From the trenches of trucking experience and a passionate heavyweight in the Truth and Broadcasting Network, welcome to Truckin City News Frontline Podcast, hosted by the most opinionated broadcaster on YouTube, Boss Man.
That's right, folks. I am Boss Man. I am here, I am present, and I'm pissed. You're making decisions that are affecting us. You're making decisions that in the end are probably going to kill people, and I'm not going to stand for it. Call our studio line 860-785-3547, 860-785-3547. Send us an email if you have an idea for a story you'd like covered. That's truckinnews@outlook.com. That's truckinnews@outlook.com. Let's bring on the guests. Tell me, guys, what is it that burns your butt more than a 3-foot tall flame and gets you fired up on a Sunday church mission more than the FMCSA making decisions like they've been making in the past? Talk to me, number one. What do you think? That is you.
Well, pretty much anything and everything they do anymore is really getting on my nerves. It really is.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knows what they're doing up there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really a downright shame. I mean, because when you come down to think about it, The first story we're going to cover, by the way, is I'm going to show you a couple of bad results that come from poor decision making. But I'm going to dovetail into what I just asked Grumpy about. And that's basically, in a nutshell, the FMCSA granting an exemption to a company about training people. You're going to be amazed at what we're talking about here. And it's stupid, really. I mean, John, I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, when you're looking at how you were trained, I mean, anytime you were in that vehicle and you were on duty and you were responsible, trainee or trainer, I mean, where were you guys? You guys were like next to each other, right? The person training you could observe you, see what you're
No,
doing, and now they don't want to do that. They want
nope.
to let permit holders operate without supervision. How crazy is that?
I actually have a whole different experience than what you just described.
Well,
I
tell
know
me
that's
about
going
the
to
experience.
surprise you,
No,
but
tell me about it.
I actually trained with two separate companies. My first company, yes, guy sat right next to me, all except for my very last day because the night before he was out having too much of a good time. He slept while I drove.
Mhm.
When I left that company, I went to another company. I rode with a guy for 1 week. For that 1 week, we basically drove team. He never rode next to me one time. Now, granted, I was only in the business for about a month at this point.
Mhm.
Never rode next to me one time. Slept
Right.
while I drove. We drove an entire week team, and then they gave me keys. That's why I tell people I was trained by YouTube. I was trained by watching, by talking to people. I wasn't actually trained by a trainer. That's the
Hmm.
problem with our industry. I was mature enough to recognize that I wasn't trained properly.
Right.
And so
Right.
I took it upon myself to train myself how to do things. But in today's world, there's not many like me out there, and I don't mean to sound like I'm big-headed or anything, but you got to take your job serious enough to be willing to learn how to do it correctly.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if they're not going to invest in you, you invest in yourself.
True that.
So
True that. You said you've been in Little John, what, 22 years, I recall, from the last show? When
hmm
you were trained, how different is today's training process from when you started driving?
Well, when I went through training, I went through 20 weeks of training,
20
10
weeks.
weeks in
Okay.
the classroom and 10 weeks in the road.
That's a far,
Then,
far cry difference. Okay.
then when you got put to your first company, I went through 8 weeks with that.
Hmm. And when the
So,
company trained you, did they like take it for granted that you knew what you were doing, or did they actually have somebody watch you?
oh no, everybody was watching you. Yeah. That trainer sat there, Dave, when you were driving, he was sitting there.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah, because did you have any to add to that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
nowadays, they push you out just as fast as you start.
Mm. Yeah. Well, in part, I think a lot of the controversy that we're dealing with nowadays, and we'll cover a little bit of that in a story or two coming up. I think a lot of that controversy is brought about by the quote new ELDT standards in driver training that just recently got updated and passed. I think it was last year. So training today, I mean, as Little John just pointed out, is a lot different. And in my opinion, I think what's happening is we're turning out a worse product. You know, when you get an assembly line going and you get something that you know works, then you make changes. A lot of times that change can affect the product in a negative way. Let me just explain to you uh, and my idea of exactly what that means. Okay. And I'm gonna bring it down to you just like this. Okay. Picture this. It's early morning hours back in May 22nd on an interstate, I-35, northbound, Troy, Texas. A car runs out of gas and is in the number 2 lane. All right. Enter a driver driving a JB Hunt tractor trailer, fully loaded, down the road, allegedly distracted, right? Runs into this disabled truck or this disabled car, rather. And you know what? Rather than just talk about it, here, let me show it to you. Boom, just like that. I mean, without so much as a question of what went on, boom, just like that, we're talking about ending somebody's life. Because in that accident, okay, and I got the story from Mother Trucker, by the way, good man, talked to him. In that accident, somebody lost their life. And that was not a good thing. So let me just preface this. If you're going to dumb down training standards, think about that May 22nd accident. Okay? Many have opined on this accident, and they have said themselves, looking through Mother Trucker's comments, she should have coasted to the shoulder and stepped away from the vehicle. To say the accident was the commercial motor vehicle driver's fault. I don't know. Put down in the comments in the audience. Let me know what you think. Do you think in that case, what I just showed you, he was clearly looking at his phone. Yes, he was distracted, but we don't know how long the girl was sitting there. She clearly had no lights on, no flashers. The comments were blowing up on Mother Trucker's video, and we're just going absolutely nuts. So let's check out the comments in a minute. But Grumpy, what do you think? I mean, in that circumstance I just showed you, what do you think? Do you think the guy driving the truck was at fault, or do you think there was some culpability in the breakdown? What do you think?
Myself, I honestly believe that driver of that truck was at fault, because he should have barely been paying attention, because you could have seen it before and he could have swerved over, because there was nothing by the looks of the video where he couldn't have swerved to get out of the way in time.
Okay. Fair assessment. Little John, what do you think? Do you think, given what you just saw there and a little bit of details I give you, do you agree with the commenters, or do you think the commercial motor vehicle driver was at fault?
Well, if he wasn't paying attention, it's totally the truck driver's fault.
Right. You guys, seems pretty unanimous, but let me ask you something. What would possibly bring someone to think that the fault could ever be on the girl who broke down and rode out of gas? I mean, what do you think, John?
Well, I mean, if you want to play devil's advocate here, when your car is running out of gas or breaking down, you can feel it happening. You don't just all of a sudden just stop. So
Yeah.
devil's advocate would say, when you feel something weird going on, get off the road.
Yep.
And then figure out what's going on.
Yep.
But all of that being said, I mean, granted, it's at night. He probably didn't have as much warning as he probably would have liked, but
Yep.
it looked like there wasn't any evasive action taken at all, which
Right.
makes me think he was either, road hypnotized or distracted or something. But I mean, when I'm saying evasive, we are obviously not taking a sharp left or a sharp right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no brakes, nothing. So
I personally, and by the way, I noticed the comment there. I highlighted it. Poet, if you're listening, I'll be talking briefly about something up in your area. So thank you for listening, my friend. I thought of you in today's story, so pay attention, my friend. Not to mention, to your point, John, I mean, we're always trained and warned to do things the same way. I mean, distracted driving kills. How many times we have to hear that? That video right there is proof, But I don't care what you talk about, whether it's that very video or any circumstance, minor, anywhere. I mean, we are held to an extremely high standard. I mean, we are the golden nugget when it comes to how to operate a vehicle safely. Forget the fact that we have 80,000 pounds behind us, or in some cases, lives, I mean, we could make the smallest hiccup and we are under huge scrutiny. I mean, tell me if you three agree with this. A trucker's wife was once asked about her belief on how her husband does her job or does their job, and how he feels about the scrutiny exacted upon us on a daily basis. And this is what she said.
Or that anytime I make up a scenario of like a car and a truck doing anything, I go, whose fault would it be? And my husband always says, without fail, it's the truck driver's fault. And when I try to process that in my mind, he says to me, nobody really protects us. I could lose my job at any time. If somebody decides to go 80 miles an hour and ram me off the road and I go into a ditch, I will lose my job.
Think about this. She speaks truth. Not only is that her concern, but I can tell you fervently, without it even moment's hesitation, that's my wife thinking, talking right there. She's worried about the very same thing because she knows I'm a safe driver. I've been in it 13 years. I can speak for everyone on the panel. Y'all are safe. You take your job seriously. You know, all it takes is one. You know, what do you think, Grumpy?
Well, yeah, I agree with that young lady there because, I mean, my wife worries about me all the time. And, you know, she's rode with me quite a few times and she's seen quite a bit of crazy stuff go on out there. And she's like, there's no way I could deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, John, when it comes down to it, just the idea that the image of our industry has deteriorated so much that wives are at home thinking and saying this very thing. It's crazy.
Well, honestly, part of that's on me. I mean, you watch my videos, you see crazy things that truckers do. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to pump myself up here, but honestly, I do understand the image is tarnished by that. But at the same point, it used to be 5-10 years ago that when somebody did something stupid and you were involved, they always found a way to blame you. We live in an age where now dash cams are a thing. I push for dash cams a lot. The reason why is that is your saving grace. Not one facing you, but one facing outward and then down the side of your truck, even the back of your truck like Midlife has. Guys, that could save your career and your livelihood. I mean, honestly, it really could. I would tell everybody to get a dash cam.
Amen. It is a lifesaver in so many ways, and we'll cover one of those here in just a minute. Back in 95, this coming from Gary Cook. Welcome to the show, my friend. New name I've seen. Back in 95, I trained through Schneider National, 2 weeks in Green Bay, and then I went to a trainer for another 2 weeks. And I was released to run on my own. I was able to comprehend the aspect of driving. Well, God bless you. If you're watching the show, it seems like you know what you're talking about. I'm glad you did so and did so completely understanding things. I'm at a loss for words today. Green Bay was a Schneider, was a skid pad. I was able to participate, so I have a good idea how to handle a truck on bad roads. Well, in the north, that's almost a must. Midlife contributes. Enjoy your home time, friend. Don't worry about us out here. As a driver, I once ran out of fuel in a semi. No sputter, no warning, just loss of power until I glided to a stop. I think what John was talking about was this lady in question in the middle of this number 2 lane had the opportunity to probably go do just the same thing. You don't just stop, boom, like that. You get time, But go ahead, John.
I don't want to pick on Midlife or that lady, for example, but said no warning. You have a fuel gauge? Pretty sure it was probably warning you already by that point.
I was just going to go there, yeah. One of the commenters on Mother Trucker's video pointed that very fact out. I mean, who hasn't driven a vehicle that within trucks? I mean, I can't speak for cars. Trucks, you got 30 gallons left. You're getting your fuel light's already going on. That you got time to get off the road for that. I mean, come on. Not picking on the girl. Like I said, you may not have as much when it comes to a car, but you're not going to just die right immediately with no warning. One of the commenters was like, yeah, their ding ding or honk honk didn't work. I don't know. He was being smart, but come on. No, all cars have the same method. The fuel light comes on. You're told get to the fuel gauge. Besides quarter tank, good practice, I think. Obviously that wasn't followed here, but regardless, I mean, whether the person ran out of fuel, whether they broke down, it don't matter the reason. They're stopped in the middle of the road. How often have you come down the road, Little John? Not just a car, but there's something in the road, middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning. It kind of wakes you up, but it also kind of makes you think. That could have just as easily been a person standing there. You know, I mean, looking at your phone, you can miss it in 5 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. I mean, think about that. What do you think, John?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you take your eye off the road for a second, something could appear right in front of you.
Yep.
That's all it takes is 1 second.
Exactly. Gary adds again, 28 years I've been driving, never jackknife. I've never lost control. I use common sense when I drive. I'm glad to hear that. Because I don't know what you look like, Gary, but I certainly like to think every time I'm next to somebody, they have common sense. So it's nice to think about anyway. Let me briefly move on. Yeah, right. Let me briefly move on to a second story, which I think just as clearly shows the same thing we're talking about. Moreover, yeah, I want to do a screen share because I think you guys need to be aware of a very important thing here. Give me a second. We are talking about accidents. One you need to know about is in the state of Nebraska. Trying to get everything set up. In the state of I also need to find my eye teeth because I think I left them home. In the state of Nebraska, an accident occurred between a semi and a broke down truck, or broke down car, actually. And honestly, it's a downright shame that I even have to broadcast this. But I am. Because honestly, you know what? If you're involved, if you're a semi driver, especially, and you're involved in an accident, dude, stop. Own up to it. Okay? Nebraska State Police is seeking the help of the public in locating a semi that was involved in a fatal hit and run crash on I-80. And this says last night, but it was actually Thursday. The semi likely has front end damage on the passenger side after striking a motorist changing a tire near Big Springs. The semi was eastbound. If you have any information, I'm going to broadcast their Twitter right here. The number is on the screen, 308-632-1211. 308-632-1211. Now, I don't normally do stuff like this, okay? But here, in this case, somebody lost their life. And it was due to the fact that somebody was, again, not paying attention. And moreover, what affects me is that by witness accounts, although they couldn't identify the semi, they said that person knew they hit them because they slowed down and came to a stop and then continued on. No one could identify the semi, which is why the Nebraska State Patrol is looking for this individual. But it just goes to the core of, hey, be accountable to your mistakes. Yeah, you might hurt somebody. You might kill somebody. But you know what? They're going to find you eventually. You can run, but you can't hide. But to the Nebraska State Patrol, I hope you do find him. Because there's a family right now missing a man. He no longer has a daddy, a father, or a husband, and that's a shame. But that's part of the training we're talking about. If you're not trained properly, or if you don't have the ethics, you don't need to be doing the job. Any one of the three you can opine on that. I'm going to look through the comments here. I mean, it's just downright shameful that somebody did that. We definitely need to get them off the road.
That goes back to the lack of training. They throw so many people in one class, and then 2-3 weeks later, they're put in a truck. There you go.
Yeah. I'm going to highlight one very important thing that I opened the whole show with. I think it's disgraceful that's even being talked about today on the heels of this, but I think it's disgraceful what people are doing. To your point, little John Goodwin. What you going to say, John?
I was just going to say, again, I'm not trying to pump my channel here. I swear I'm not. But I made a video about personal responsibility. This one literally falls right in that one. Mm-hmm. You have to have a personal responsibility to own up to what you do wrong. When you make a mistake like that, granted, it's a life-altering mistake that will have consequences that will last the rest of your life, as it should, because you took a life. But
Yeah.
pull over, do the right thing. You know, who
Exactly.
knows? Maybe if they would have pulled over, uh, maybe they could have helped or some first aid or I don't know.
Right.
But my point is, I wasn't there. My point is, have some personal responsibility. Stand up, say, I did it wrong, take your consequences, and don't run from it. Don't just drive away and be driving around this country with front end damage. Now, every time I see a truck with front end damage, I wonder, is that the guy? Is that the guy? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of them out here that are front end damage. Just saying. So
Yeah.
now you
Exactly.
got that in my head for the next week. Thanks.
Yeah, I know, right? We got another story too. Same kind of thing, only this person was not fatally injured. Okay. I'm just going to give you highlights of it because I really didn't have time to script everything. But in Atlanta, Georgia, there's dash cam on the internet, and I'll have the links, by the way, to all this stuff. It's from the trucker.com. Dash cam video shows the moment a semi truck crashed through an intersection and into a vehicle. This happened in Friday afternoon in DeKalb County. The vehicle was struck so hard it clearly sent it flying through the intersection, came to rest a short while later. The driver of the car came out of it with some serious head trauma, was later sent to the hospital, and it was determined the driver of the semi was apparently distracted or not paying attention. The owner of the company, when questioned later after the incident, stated the driver of the semi careened through the intersection suffering from a medical condition. Well, it's easy to say, but your driver decided to run the scene and later stop and call 911. So it makes your story on what happened to your driver a little bit unbelievable. So yet another circumstance. That's number 3 of poor decision making. Okay, I'll give you there may have been a medical. There may have been a problem. But I don't care how bad the problem gets in my truck. I know where those red and yellow buttons are. I will pull them without doubt because the safety of people around me outweigh mine. We had a show a while back, and I know you guys can remember this. And I parried the question about whether you were headed for a victim in a car or a tree, which would you do? And you guys unanimously said the same thing I did. And that's it. I'm going to put the truck into the tree. I am going to save the life of the person I'm heading for. Well, the same and true here. If I'm heading for something, I'm going to take my life before I take theirs. Now, it's probably unnerving for my wife to hear, but that's the mark of a professional driver right there. That's someone that has clearly thought out the priorities. I cannot live with myself if in doing my job, I take someone else's life with me. Whether I'm blamed for it or not, I can't go home and do the same job thinking I've killed somebody. So to you cowards on the road that run from hit and run accidents, God be with you. That's all I'm going to say. And that's putting it mildly. Last thoughts, guys?
Yeah, actually, again, this goes right down the alley of my channel, and I apologize. I don't mean to keep doing this to you.
By all means.
No, sorry. No, but I made a video, and on Facebook especially, I was appalled at the answers. I said, does the code still exist? I would take myself out before taking a family out or taking somebody else out, right? Because that's a code in trucking. It was for years. Granted, I'm kind of new into trucking, but I've been a trucking fan and a trucking, enthusiast for years. So that is a code. Old school guys will tell you. All these guys right here that have 20 plus years, they'll shake their head. Shake your head, guys. That's a code. You take your own life before you take somebody else's. That's just how it works. In this video, I got tens of 20s, hundreds of comments where people are like, no, I have a family to go home to. I don't care about their life. I'm like, whoa. Like,
they have no business in this industry then.
Yeah, I mean, I would say half the comments agreed with me and half adamantly disagreed with me. And I was just so like, it blew my mind because
think about what that says about the state of our industry. I mean, I had a show about that not long ago, and I thought I hit it on the mark back then, but if what you say is true and half the people watching your video, you have to want, number one, ask how many of them are drivers. But number two, what are people
no.
thinking nowadays? What are they
These-
actually being shown that leads them to believe that?
These comments were coming from truck drivers. I
Yeah.
went and looked at a lot of their profiles. I posted it on a lot of trucking groups. No trucking groups mentioned here, but that guy over there runs one. But I post them on a lot of them, and yeah, I mean, I was just appalled. Honestly, it offended me personally because my wife knew when I went into this. I told her if I ever take a life, I'm done driving the second that happens. I'm dropping my keys. I'm never getting behind the wheel again. And if it happens to be that, I have to choose between someone else and myself, I'm laying it down. It's not going to be me. I mean, it's not going to be them. I'm going to lay the truck down in a ditch or up a tree or off a cliff. It doesn't matter. I'm not taking somebody else out if I have a say. I
think I speak for everybody on this panel. We will gladly forecast or sacrifice our conscience of knowing that we were responsible for removing a person off the face of this earth. Without a doubt. That is the way I feel. And I firmly believe the other three on this panel say the same thing. What do you say, Grumpy?
Well, I say basically if it's a human being, I'll take my life first. If it's anything else, well, sayonara.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I got no issues with that. What about you, Little John? What do you think?
Same thing with them. Mm-hmm. I will gladly put my truck in a ditch or run it off a hill to avoid hitting somebody or taking someone out.
Yep. I mean, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I was just going to tell you one more quick story because this guy over here, he was talking about something besides a human being. When I was only driving for about 7 months, I had my daughter with me, and I was in Iowa. And I come up over a hill, and there's 5 deer standing in the middle of the road. And I hit my brakes, but I didn't swerve, and I took out 3 or 4 of the deer, bam, 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 bam. And my daughter looks at me after we're done, and she's like, "You didn't even try to miss them." I'm like, okay, in a truck, you do not swerve unless you are willing to take your life and the person that's in the truck with you. And I'm not dying, and I'm not killing my daughter for a bunch of deer. No offense, I love Bambis. They taste good in the frying pan, but not doing that. So
yeah, that's not cool to do. So
well, there are people out there that believe you should.
That's a different circumstances because you're trained to not swerve to miss animals.
Yep.
I mean,
well, it's not only that; it's just the safety of other people. I mean, you could roll that thing and put it across the road, and you've now created a circumstance where somebody behind you can come along and kill themselves running into you. So you have the obligation of maintaining control 100% all time. So good point, John. You are so true and accurate to that. Gary Cook says a couple of years ago, I-95 through Georgia commercial motor vehicle getting busted for DUI. Okay. Don't know what that's all about. Maybe it's to a previous comment, but Trucking is Dead said, John's important to own up to your mistakes. Thank you for that. Poet, adding to it, did over 80 courses on my own time because I felt I needed them. Here, if you're rear end somebody, it's automatically your fault. Be a trucker or a four-wheel driver. Okay. All right. Well, I know I like to think most companies believe in safety. Appearance of safety is not necessarily a real thing. Depends on. You wouldn't see nothing yet, Poet. We're getting to the meat of that one. Because if you think today, the people in this country are being trained poorly. This even extends up north. The province of Manitoba recently put into practice a new way of doing things. Let's just say the Manitoba government recognized the vital role of the trucking industry in their economy. You notice the sarcasm on my voice. Poet, you can't see me, but you can hear me. Yeah. They're taking immediate action to bolster driver safety, training, and retention. Ministers Jamie Moses and Lisa Naylor announced a robust plan to implement recommendations from a report received by a commissioned joint government industry steering committee. I hate even saying that because it doesn't make any sense. The report was driven by the essential nature of the trucking industry and by the trucking industries. Anyway, it's garbage. It really is. A well-trained workforce is critical for the industry's future, says the individual. Okay. I got news for you. What they have done up there is they've modeled what we're going to cover in a minute. And that's, to a smaller degree, the ELDT standards we have here. What they're trying to do in Manitoba is require all the schools that train people in trucking to adhere to the same set of standards, which is what the ELDT is here in the States. Honestly, by comments read in around this issue, it's nothing but garbage, costing their schools more money, tying their schools up in more red tape, and lessening the training standards for the individuals for whom it serves. Poet, you look into it and let me know what you think in an email later. But I'm letting you know it's doing no one any good. I mean, when it comes to training, you should just leave it well enough alone. A standard required hours of observed and supervised training should be the standard. And it should be 100% driver oriented, not school oriented. What do you think, Grumpy?
No, students that get out there, they need to be with a trainer for a while. I mean, I've had experience with training after many years, and I actually kept him a little bit longer than what my company required because I felt that he needed some more help, which was turned out well. The gentleman's actually on his own and doing well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody in the office or in the audience right now, other than Poet, is really subject to Canadian provincial rules and regulations. But if you're watching this on the replay, or if you are in the audience, put your opinion down. I want to know. It's freaking crazy to think that some bureaucrat somewhere, suit and tie, no experience in trucking, claims the authenticity of knowing what's good for you and me. You got no clue, pal. You got no clue, pal. You have no freaking idea. We are out here every day relying on you people to make the decisions to keep us safe. We're already here. We've already proven ourselves. And we now got to worry about these schmucks with 3 or 4 hours, compared to us, 3 or 4 hours worth of half the knowledge. Come on. How does that make you feel, Big John? Do you really trust that today people are getting the same as what we used to get when we started? Come on. It's ridiculous.
Again, because I am less trucking than everybody else on this panel, I think it's just drastically gone downhill from when even I started 7 years ago, to the point now where I was talking to a gentleman, started with a company, literally came out of school. They handed him keys after his orientation, and he started driving. 0 days of training. 0. Right. Guys, it's just steadily getting worse and worse and worse. And until people start to realize that is the biggest problem in our industry, and I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. 100%, I believe the biggest problem in our industry is lack of training. We need to start training people up instead of just giving them the keys and let them bring the whole industry down.
Yeah.
Right. I agree 100%.
Again, if you guys want to join the show, be on the panel, click on the StreamYard link in the description below. Otherwise, dial our studio line, 860-785-3547. 860-785-3547. Little John, when it comes down to it, I mean, do you feel the same as Big John? Do you think that we need to up our training standards? I mean, does it unnerve you that we're dealing with people that just don't have half the knowledge we have in terms of training?
Oh, yeah. I agree with John 100%. I mean, you look at most trucking companies now, you have a 4-week class. What are you going to learn in 4 weeks?
Not a whole lot, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, that's just for them to get their CDL. That's not.
Yeah.
driving this truck.
Yep.
Mm.
It's ridiculous. It really is.
And then they put you with a trainer that has maybe even less experience than you do.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Mm.
If you think that's bad,
Because
wait till you see the story coming up. I mean, yeah, I've already taken issue with certain companies selecting trainers with inadequate training time. I know of companies. Now, I'm not going to mention names, but I know of companies that will literally take you 30 days in, new guy, just got past your probationary period, and they're already telling you, oh, you can make more money training.
Mhm.
Crazy.
Mm.
I know
And the
several
sad
of them
thing
do.
is, the sad
Now-
thing is, we have audience members that could probably opine on that better than me. But I'll tell you something. I don't like that. I think there needs to be a minimum
No.
requirement. What do you think?
Now I'm gonna do a little shout out right now. The gentleman that said this, you know who you are, and I know you're watching, so you get in here and defend yourself. But he would adamantly disagree with what you just said, John. And I actually respect this gentleman. Not that I agree with him, but his take on the whole thing is that either you're a trainer or you're not a trainer. It doesn't matter your experience. There are people that could be here 20 years and never be able to train because they're not trainers. So he believes someone could be 6 months, and his favorite thing is, well, what is the magic number to make someone a good trainer? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 5 years? Is it 20 years? At what point does someone magically become a great trainer? And I'm like, no, it's not about magically being a great trainer. You have to know the industry before you teach the industry. That's all it is. I can't put a number behind it. Some people it could be a year. Some people it could be 20 years. But you have to know I not know everything, obviously, but
Right.
But there's also those trainers out there that they'll sit there and they'll train somebody, but they're not in it to train that student. They're in it for that money that they're getting, the extra money. That as soon as they get that trainer, that guy out of his truck, he's getting another one.
Mhm.
My trainer, when I first started, was eight weeks long. I spent 4 weeks in his truck until his father passed away, and then he said I can go home and wait for another trainer. I don't want another trainer. I want to stay with the one I've got because I'm learning more from you than what someone else coming in.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Gary Cook says I think a trainer should have a minimum of 3 years before they can become a trainer. I'm actually not on the same side as you, Gary, and I know the person Big John was referring to a minute ago is probably going to be chomping at the bit of what I'm saying, but I'm going to agree with half of what Big John said. On the same side, I'm going to stand firm on something I've said in previous shows. One thing you'll learn about me, I don't back down, okay? Whether I'm right or wrong, I will be happy to acknowledge and account for, but I never back down. I said at one time, I think the minimum should be 1,000,000 miles before you're qualified to be a trainer. But the half of what John just said a minute ago, I do agree with, is that you could have 1,000,000.5 miles and not have an idea or clue how to train somebody. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of conflicting with myself, but bottom line is, if you're an infant, you're not going to teach your mama how to walk. It's kind of the other way around, you know. The parents teach the kids. It's not the other way around.
let's use a different industry as an example. If you look at like a school teacher, they come out of school, they go in and they start teaching kids. Yes, they're teaching your kindergartner, your first or second grade, whatever. They're faking it. They don't really know how to do what they're doing. They're just doing what they've been taught and slowly learning as you go. The difference is that child's got 12 more years for any mistakes that teacher may have made to correct. In trucking, you got what, 2, 3, 4 weeks to teach, and if you have a bad trainer, you got years to take someone's life. I mean, we're talking life or death situation. It's not as simple as, Johnny might fall down and skin his knee. No, Johnny might take somebody out.
Yeah. And sometimes you might not be blessed with working for years before that happens. You'll be given a training dossier or certificate, then walk out, get the keys, and leave the parking lot, kill somebody.
Well, I have another great example.
Go ahead, Frank.
Another great example would be just like in the doctoring field. I mean, you don't want somebody fresh out of med school that's become a doctor just by themselves operating on you, would you?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they're going to have somebody there with them, walking them through each step and taking the time to teach them.
Yep. Speaking of the devil, midlife pipes up. We've drivers out here, been out here 20 years and don't know the industry. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I could sit here all day long and opine on what I think the standard should be. Am I right? Am I wrong? No, but you know what? What I don't want is I don't want a standard being set that's so low, you might as well throw the standards out. So when I ask for a number, I'm going to give you a number. But the bottom line is, whatever you're doing, you need to take it seriously, because we're going to kill people out here if we don't. I mean, it's just that simple, you know, and that's really what I'm afraid. I don't want people dying out here because of me, you know, and it might not be me, but, you know, my brother kills somebody, I'm just as culpable. You know, if as an industry, we sit here and accept that a practice is taking place and we do nothing, we are just as guilty as the people who do it. So that's why I've started this show. I want to not only just start a movement, as I put on my slides, I want to be the movement. I want people thinking things through. I want people talking about it. And I want those responsible to be held accountable. Those in the media, those in leadership. That's my shtick. And I'm not changing. So, you know, when it comes down to it, we got a lot of work ahead of us. Because if you think the way people are trained now is bad, get a load of this. I've just run into a story that really, I mean, I think takes the cake. Okay, we're diving into a contentious decision recently put out. Again, links in the description. Read it if you will. Federal Motor Carrier, FMCSA. They basically got everybody up in arms, myself included. On July 30th, the FMCSA approved a request from Covenant Logistics to allow CLP holders here in the States to operate without a commercial driver's license in the passenger seat under specific circumstances. This exemption means that the holders of said permit have passed the skills test, but have not received their documents that say they can drive Covenant Logistics commercial motor vehicles without a holder in the front seat. Anyway, they're trying to skirt the process and get their drivers in the seat faster. I think it's dangerous. So Covenant argued that the CLP holders affected by this exemption have already completed all the steps. They're already knowledgeable. And emphasized the granting exemption would allow these people to begin immediately productive on-the-job training. Well, how the hell can you train somebody if there's no holder sitting in the seat? So they're conflicting with themselves. Now, this decision has also faced some opposition. The OIDA has voiced strong objections, arguing that the regulations requiring an experienced driver in the front seat with a permit holder were implemented for safety in mind. And they contended that Covenant's decisions not necessarily demonstrated that the exemption they're asking for would achieve a level of safety high enough to warrant regulatory change. Nonetheless, that being said, even though OIDA argued against it and opposed it, the FMCSA granted it anyway. So, I mean, just that is but yet another shining example of what do we need to do to get these people to understand? I mean, you're killing people out here. If you're putting people on the road that have less experience, that have no freaking clue what they're doing, think about what it's doing. Think about the decisions themselves. It's crazy. You know, first you got Manitoba, now you got the FMCSA. What are we just going to do? Just open up a Cracker Jacks assembly line and say, here are the keys? Have fun. Good luck. I mean, what do you think, Grumpy?
Well, you know, the factor of it is, like I say, I'll just say it straight up. You've got all these pencil pushers and keyboard jockeys that have never stepped a foot in a semi. Therefore, they know nothing other than what they're told. And so, unless they're going to get out here with us and start experiencing it and hands-on, they don't know nothing. So they should quit making these laws and quit making all that unless they're going to get out here and grab some experience time. Rather just be a week with somebody. That's all they really need, because they get a taste of it and find out what we go through in real life.
Well, I think the simple fact that they're pulling the reins back on responsibility of all things, just giving somebody the option of not learning and not being accountable by itself, I think goes against even the first story. As I mean, here we are talking about the heels of 3 different accident scenes. You know, Georgia, I-80, and the other one that happened, the fatality. It's just ridiculous. You know, that an organization having those things in their mind could say, oh, yeah, let's make training a lower priority. Give me a break.
Not in this job.
I mean, it's crazy to think that a company is even trying to push for that. I mean, if you worked for a company like that, Little John, what would you quit? I mean, would you seriously doubt the integrity of that company?
I would turn around and walk right back out the door.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-mm.
how important?
I've worked too hard to keep my CDL clean for someone else to go and mess it up.
Yeah. I mean, how important do you think it is for the average individual to understand that it is abundantly important for somebody with experience to be in that seat watching a trainee at all times? It's just crazy.
Oh, yeah. And I don't believe they should go out of state. They should stay in the state that they're in with a person that's qualified to sit there.
The only problem with that,
I don't think it's abundantly obvious that that whole interstate intrastate argument's going to go anywhere on this show. We've discussed it before.
I'm sorry,
you know, training by itself needs to be a standard not messed with. I mean,
yes, I agree with that.
Yep. Midlife says the trainer's asleep in the bunk at OST. I don't know what that means by that. Doesn't matter how long out of school. I don't know if that was reference to the last topic we talked about, but look, bottom line is you need someone in the seat, and that person in the seat has to know what they're doing. You know, first of all, you know, I'm not going to back up what I said earlier. School or no school, you need experience to be training someone, and don't go thinking that showing the basics. Oh, you got it. Go to sleep in the bunk, and then no, be awake. Run it like a team truck. That's what you have to do. That's the sensible way of doing it. What do you think?
Well, you couldn't really run it as a team truck because team truck, one's sleeping, one's driving, so that wouldn't work. But
well, you get the point I'm making. I said it wrong, but
Anyhow, when I did my training with my trainee, I stayed on duty the whole time on my ELD while I sat in the passenger seat. Now, towards the very end, which was the last week I had him, I felt comfortable enough with him that one night I was feeling kind of under the wind and I decided to take me a nap. But I'm a light sleeper when somebody else is at the wheel. Therefore, I could hear him starting to get tired and I heard them bumps and I woke up and I said, is everything okay? So, you know, you're not just going to want to just fall asleep and say, oh, he's got this kind of thing. Well, hello.
I take it Midlife wants to tear me up because of my comment. What do you think about the training standards? You think I'm wrong on that, or you got something else to add to the show today?
You're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. Okay. You didn't read the entire story and look into it. These are people who have already passed their CDL test. They've already done the training, passed the CDL test. The reason they're doing it is because they cannot get their physical card. They have the paper. They've already passed the CDL test. They can't get the card because states like New Jersey, because of COVID, made the decision that you had to wait for an appointment. That appointment could be 3 months away, 2 months away. California, you had to wait. They were like 8 weeks backed up. This is not anybody who doesn't. They already read the story. All of these
so this is a post-COVID problem then?
Correct.
Is that what you're telling
me? To this day, there are states that now require appointments to go in there and get your physical CDL card. These are people who have already done the training. They've already gotten the CDL permit, done the training, took the CDL test with an examiner. You know, you take the test sometimes in a different state than where you live. Then you have to go back to your state and get the license. All this does is make the people who already have passed the CDL test not have to wait to get that card from their physical state. They've already done everything. The only thing stopping them is getting a picture taken on a piece of plastic.
Okay, good to understand. Hey, every day we learn something. I mean, you're right. I did scan the story, and I didn't really, because with the amount of stories I'm covering, I didn't really dive as much into it. So,
they didn't write it that way. If you read it, it's in there, but they buried it way down in the mice type. They want the headline telling everybody that they're easing it. They're not easing it. They didn't make it any easier.
It's easy to assume that when you read the stories and the details the way I presented it. I mean, so
yep.
Yeah.
When you look
to your
it up,
point,
you'll see that the case was based on somebody waiting 6 months to get the appointment.
Yeah.
That's what caused it.
Yeah. I mean, research, I look at corroborating stories and other information. I don't generally look at deep like you did, cases and stuff. No. I mean, that's how I found the first 3 accidents, was doing the research. So it's just the idea that they're changing it. Yeah, okay, people have appointment issues, but still.
They wrote
how long do most people get probation? Some of them go 3 months. So is it really necessary though?
Yes.
That's my thing.
Yes. Call and try and get an appointment in certain states. And then you've got to get back there. Okay, so you're going to have to stop driving. We all know people who first started driving, they aren't making any money. So what's going to happen? You're making barely any money, and now you've already passed everything, but you can't drive for a month because you've got to go back home, get your permit or get your actual hard card license.
Right.
And so I've got to schedule that for next Tuesday at 3 p.m. to get my card license. Well, what's the chances they're going to be able to get me home that day?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a fella I watched, and I was going to put him on. Yeah, I was going to put him on for a different purpose, but there's issues even with medical cards coming up too that I may do a future story on. Fella's been off the road now 6 weeks because of a small issue, but we'll talk about that in future stories.
And not only that, they're making it where it's so hard to get the card back when you lose your medical card.
Yeah, because of the new things we covered last week's show. That's the new requirements coming up November, which, by the way, some states are starting earlier. So definitely want to keep tuned to not only this channel, but any other news sources too, because you know what? Changes are coming, and they're not going to be honest about it. They're not going to let you know right away. And just like Midlife said a minute ago, they're going to put it down in, how did you term it? Mice print? Yeah, they don't want you knowing some of the finer details, because a lot of times that would actually make them look like liars. So, gentlemen, I gotta
the people writing these stories. Before you run off, the people writing these stories and freight waves and all this, they're going for headlines. They're going for clicks. They're going to put all the stuff to inflame you at the front of the story. At the very, very bottom, they're going to put the part about what the real thing is.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if the music's playing because I've been having issues with my audio. So that's what the story, the whole show started out weird for.
Well, I want to point out one thing real quick, boss man.
Go ahead.
We have a challenge going on between myself, the Grumpy Trucker, and Midlife and Driving with John on weight loss.
Yep.
Join in on us and help us out and try to beat us. We sure would appreciate it.
Exactly. You know what? It's all about making smart decisions. It's all about good health. Because at the end of the day, the only person that matters is you. I appreciate you mentioning that, Grumpy. To the audience and to everybody else out there, you know what? Remember, when it comes down to it, as leaders, we need to make sure that everybody out there has the ability to do better, make better choices, think things through, pay attention while you're on the road, guys. It's the industry's reputation I'm most concerned about, and the lives of your fellow drivers and motorists. Because you know what? These trucks, they aren't driving themselves yet. They're making these deliveries, but you are the ones making the difference. Till next time, keep it upright, keep it on the road, keep the faith, and keep it rolling.